One of the most important words in this generation is the word consent. And that consent, as a value, is what the Sexual Offences Bill 2024 seeks to protect. Now, if I may be very clear, if consent is not defined by law, sometimes people can exploit the gray areas that law creates in order to violate people's rights and people's ability to defend themselves against their potential perpetrators or perpetuators thereof. Now, let me walk you through that very principle and how it's protected by this legislation, the one which has been labeled by the Honorable Anna Adeke, the Sexual Offences Bill 2024. Now, what does consent mean? The Sexual Offences Bill defines consent to be 1. Voluntary, 2. Informed, meaning if by voluntary I mean no one can coerce it or use force. 2. It has to be informed. If someone makes a sexual choice but they have limited information, then that's not consent. 3. It has to be continuous, meaning someone can give it to you and withdraw it at any time, which means that it has to be a clear yes that can't be forced, tricked, or assumed. And there are very clear gray areas sometimes which create gray lines between whether it was consent or consent under duress, or where consent could have been misrepresented. Remember, consent is not valid if it's not obtained under duress, like threats and pressure. And read the bill. So much on these issues. It's also void if someone is misled about the nature of the act, or if they are unable to make a clear decision due to drugs, alcohol, and unconsciousness. So if someone is unable to consent when their state of mind has been altered either by alcohol, this law poses as a foundation for us to criminalize such actions. Now, the other is around consent being able to be withdrawn anytime. Remember, consent is continuous, which means someone can give it to you, someone can take it. This law still makes it clear that even when consent is given, it can be withdrawn at any time. A yes can turn into a no, and that change must be respected by the parties that are in that specific regard. Now, actions stem from principles generally, and the action of people not engaging in sexual violence is rooted in them respecting consent of the other individual, which means that those that engage in the action of sexual violence are indirectly abusing the value of consent. And that's why it's a very important value in this specific bill, the value of consent. Consent which must be voluntary, which must be informed, and which must be continuous.